Chapter 16. No, I said, shaking my head. As surprised I was at hearing this bit of news for the first time, I was still sensible enough to know that a vault was the last place I wanted to be. But then the world lit up in a blinding explosion. The willow tree crackled as a shattering bolt struck down. The noise was so powerful that it shook the stones in the walls of the church. As suddenly as it came, it was over. In its place, a ringing silence and a blackness swarming with ghost images that pulsed with every beat of the heart. For a moment, we were too stunned to move, except to blink until we could start to see properly again. "We have to get out of here," Henry shouted to me. "If we move, we could die. If we stay, we could die. But if we can get to the vault, we'll at least stand a chance." The lightning bells inside the church were tinkling insanely now. Henry gave one last jerk on my arm, and I gave in. We ran down the path and into the graveyard, where there were 4 mausoleums, 2 belonging to the Blackwoods, the other 2 to the Eastons. Behind us, the humming lightning rods in the yard sounded like the warning song of the dead. The air was crackling around us, and I tasted something metallic on my tongue. "Hurry!" I screamed. We reached the first of the Easton vaults, and all but leaped down the stairs leading to the door. With both hands on the ring, Henry pulled the heavy door open. As soon as there was room to pass, he slid inside, and I followed him and helped him shove the door closed. No sooner was the door shut than we heard another deafening explosion. It shook the wall and the floors and lit up the rim of the door with the piercing, lingering light. Then all was quiet and dark again. "Ah," Henry cried, "we made it." "Breathe in, breathe out," I told myself. I was cured, I reminded myself. I wasn't afraid of tight, dark spaces anymore. But there was no shutting out the fact that we were standing in a tomb, a place where people were buried. I pressed my lips together and began to hum. If Henry thought this was odd, he didn't say anything. "I know we left a candle in here somewhere. Just give me a minute and I'll find it." Outside, thunder rumbled. "Glad you listened to me now?" I heard myself start to talk. "When I was 6 or 7, I disappeared from Sir John Roberts' birthday party. They looked for me everywhere." "Where were you?" he asked. I heard him scrape a match, and Henry lit the candle. "I stole the cake and took it to the school. It had pearls on it." "Why did you steal the cake?" I'd only been in a burial vault once before, and that was upon my grandmother's death. I had been 4 years old, but I remember the tomb being much larger at the time. The building around me had held 4 sarcophagi housing the remains of ancient Eastern forefathers. At the other end of the structure were stairs leading down into a larger room where more Eastons had been laid to rest. "Why did you steal the cake?" Henry asked, still waiting. Another lightning strike exploded outside. I had my choice of deaths: suffocation or electrocution. I weighed my option. "Lisbette, are you all right?" I took off my shawl and dropped it onto the floor. "No more talking. We'll use up all the oxygen." "Oh, don't worry about that. There's plenty of air." "No, there's not." I opened my mouth wider to allow more oxygen inside. "I'll prove it," Henry said. He held up the candle, and immediately the flame began to flicker. "See, air is blowing on it." Henry was absolutely correct. Air was coming in. Then why couldn't I breathe? I tore at my collar and undid the button, but nothing I did could convince my lungs I was getting enough air. I began to pace and hum. The noise coming from my throat, however, was anything but music. It was more like a forced beat, matching the speed of my thrashing heart. "Lisbette, what's the matter?" Henry said, following me with a candle. "I'm okay," I said, but then I changed my mind. "No, I'm not. I'm getting out of here." I ran to the door, but just as I touched it, another bolt hit the ground so close that the steel ring glowed blue, and a buzz of electricity shot into my fingers. I screamed and fell backwards. Again the building shook and silt sifted down from the ceiling, clouding the air. I ran to the corner, crouched down and arched my neck, pulling my collar as far from my neck as it would stretch. "You're scaring me," Henry said. On another level I heard him, but in my private hell he was far away in another place, a place where there was plenty of air to breathe. I was under water, suffocating, blind. It was all I could do to keep myself from running outside again. I sensed Henry moving around, but I had no interest in why. I heard him speak again, but it was so distant now that I could no longer make out what he was saying. I have no coherent idea of how long we were down there. To me it seemed like hours of suffering. The pressure in my head, whether real or imaginary, was pressing against my ears, making them ring. I felt one continual wave of sickness pouring over me. Then the door opened. In the back of my mind, I registered a larger person carrying a smaller person. It meant nothing to me, but the cold air coming from the open door cleared my mind. It lasted only a moment before the door was closed again. "Henry, you're here," Trey cried from very far away. "Something's wrong with her," Henry said in a muted, frightened voice. "She won't even talk to me." Trey, the smaller of the 2 newcomers, was set down on the floor, and in another moment someone was bearing down on me. I pushed back. "No, I can't breathe." "Open the door, quick," Timothy ordered. Henry obeyed. I felt myself being lifted up and put on my feet and pulled toward the open air. As soon as the wind hit my face, I began to gasp, sucking in air as fast as I could. But then, just when the air was abundant again, everything was turning black. My legs felt like jelly, and if Timothy wasn't holding me, I would have fallen. "What's wrong with her, Timothy?" I heard Trey's anxious voice say. "She's claustrophobic," Timothy explained quickly. Then to me, "Breathe out, you twerp." I blinked at his fuzzy image, astonished. "You heard me. Are you trying to hoard the air? Come on then, exhale." I exhaled. "That was all right, but you can do better. Push it out long and hard this time." I wanted to tell him to back off, but my breathing was interfering with my ability to speak, so instead I just let him coach me until at last the darkness began to diminish. My skin was no longer on fire, and my muscles began to work again. "Better now?" he asked. "I think so." "Could you go on a little walk?" I nodded. "Underground?" My head snapped. "What?" "We're going to take the underground passage to get back to the house." I made a dash for the threshold and the stairs beyond, but Timothy stepped in front of me. No, I was saying, I can't go down there. You know I can't." "We've got to. It's the safest and fastest way. We've been lucky tonight, but there's no way I'm sending Henry outside again." "Okay, I understand," I said, keeping my eyes on the open door. "That makes sense. You three go and I'll just walk back home on the road." "Sorry, Lisbeth. The road is crawling with soldiers." Henry piped up. "They're not interested in me anymore, at least not as long as they think I'm Daryl. That Hargrove fellow said so." "That's true," I said, latching onto this. "George said that he wasn't interested in me either. That means I can—" "Timothy," Henry said, suddenly remembering. "They said they'd found you. A soldier came, and he told Captain Hargrove they'd picked you up at the old church." "Me?" "Yes. Only Lisbeth," Henry paused, eyeing me warily, as if afraid I was going to crack up again. "She told me she didn't think it could be you because she saw you going in the other direction. She figured it was Thomas." "Bunk," Trey protested from his position on the ground. "Thomas looks nothing like Timothy." For the first time I remembered that Trey had been carried in. "What happened to you?" "I think I broke my leg," he said proudly. "It's a sprain," Timothy stated. "But if they've got Thomas, then that's all the more reason we have to get back. We have to send someone to fetch him." He closed the door. It gave an ominous thud as the stone door struck the casing. I felt my breathing start to quicken again. "I'll stay here. You go ahead." "Henry," Timothy said, "you're going to have to help Trey." "Right," Henry said, going to work at once to help Trey to his feet. "I'm serious, Timothy. I'm not going down that tunnel." But Timothy only pulled out a key, turned around, and locked the vault door from the inside. "Fine," he said. "You can stay here. No one should bother you. Someone will come and check on you in the morning."